Bună dimineața tuturor, sunt Cristian Ostuc, directorul editorial al ziarului financiar și voi fi gazda voastră la o nouă ediție ca la început de an Deloitte Cfo Summit, de data asta 2025, care sunt așteptările directorilor financiari pentru complicatul an 2025, care este rolul CFO-ului în politica de sustenabilitate a companiei și în raportarea non-financiară. Cu ajutorul invitațiilor de astăzi, cu ajutorul Deloitte, vom încerca să facem o trecere în revistă a începutului de an 2025, să vedem ce ne așteaptă, să ascultăm punctul de vedere al directorilor financiari, cei care întocmesc bilanțul companiei, cei care sunt responsabili de contul de profit și de pierderi, la care se adună toate datele financiare. Aș dori să mulțumesc Deloitte pentru faptul că facem din nou această videoconferință pentru a trece în revistă de data asta anul 2025. Cei care vor fi în fața voastră și cu ajutorul cărora vom discuta timp de mai bine de 2 ore despre începutul de an 2025 sunt Alexandru Ref, Country Managing Partner Deloitte România și Moldova, Senu Căprariu, partener la Deloitte, Dr. Alexander Bărș, Chief Economist șeful diviziei de research de la Deloitte Germania, și trecem la un panel de director financiar, Elke Maier, care este director financiar al BCR, Carl Quandt, CFO-uri din România, Bogdan Vădova, CFO Grupe Mag și Ștefan Frangulea, CFO Electrica. Cu ajutorul lor vom încerca să vedem cum arată la începutul acestui an business companiilor, care sunt așteptările lor și la ce ne-am putea aștepta în acest an, mai ales că este un an extrem de provocator. Înainte să-i dau cuvântul lui Alex Ref, Country Partner, Managing Partner la Editorul România și Republica Moldova, câteva cuvinte despre anul 2025. Am încheiat, cu toții am fi crezut că în 2024 să încheiem ciclul politic. Din păcate ne ducem din nou la alegeri în luna mai, iar acest lucru reprezintă multe semne de întrebare pentru economia românească. O economie care anul trecut și a înjumătățit creșterea economică. În acest an ne așteptăm de la 1% să avem o creștere economică spre 2,5%, cam așa arată prima prognoză a guvernului, cam pe această prognoză ar merge și analiștii, dacă, și aici sunt foarte multe semne de întrebare, cum ar putea să arate acest an. Chiar dacă inflația a scăzut anul trecut cu mai bine de un punct procentual, de la 6,6% la 5%, dobânzile în acest moment, dobânzile la lei sunt în creștere. Ministerul Finanțelor este principalul cumpărător de bani din piață și oferă, din cauza riscului politic asociat României și riscului asociat finanțelor publice, oferă dobânzi mai mari și impune un nivel extrem de ridicat de dobânzi în piață. Cursul pare să fie stabil, avem de făcut corecții, guvernul are de făcut niște corecții extraordinare în acest an care sunt puse sub semnul întrebării, cel puțin programul de austeritate, care pare să nu fie suficient și de aceea, așa cum a fost ieri și discuția de la Ecofin de la Bruxelles, din a doua parte a anului s-ar putea să vedem și alte măsuri. Dar cel mai mult ne interesează tensiunile geopolitice care ne afectează direct și indirect. Europa nu o duce tocmai bine, Germania este la limita recesiunii și, reamintesc, Germania este principalul partener comercial al României. Vom discuta situația din Germania și efectele asupra României cu dr. Alexander Bărș. Repet, tensiunile geopolitice par să ne cuprindă, a venit Donald Trump la Casa Albă și nu știm cum se vor desfășura lucrurile în continuare. Cam atât a fost prima introducere a mea. Alex, ai cuvântul, mulțumesc încă o dată pentru acest parteneriat și hai să vedem din punctul vostru de vedere, da? Care sunt provocările acestui an, ce vă așteptați voi ca și Deloitte și în special clienții voștri.
Bună dimineața! Mulțumesc foarte mult, Cristi, și mulțumesc tuturor celor care ne sunt alături la această a 6-a ediție a Deloitte Cfo Summit, despre care aș îndrăzni să spun că este probabil cel mai important eveniment anual dedicat directorilor financiari și, desigur, parteneriatul cu ziarul financiar a contribuit și de data aceasta în mod extrem de semnificativ la poziționarea atât de, cred eu, ofertantă a acestei inițiative și, desigur, mulțumesc în cel puțin egală măsură distinșilor noștri invitați, liderii unor departamente financiare din cele mai mari și mai importante companii din România și, desigur, tuturor celor care ne urmăresc, fie în direct, fie în înregistrare. Sperăm să fie și de data asta câteva mii de pasionați de business, cum cred că se întâmplă la fiecare eveniment derulat în acest parteneriat de succes între Deloitte și ziarul financiar. Și aș mai reaminti, cum am făcut în fiecare an, că acest eveniment, această conferință face parte dintr-o inițiativă mai amplă pe care o derulăm pentru a sprijini și consolida comunitatea directorilor financiari sub conceptul de CFO Program. E un concept global pe care îl coordonează în România colegul și partenerul meu Zeno Căprariu. Inițiativa include și acest studiu CFO Survey România, pe care îl derulăm anual în rândul directorilor financiari și ale cărui rezultate vor fi explicate de Zeno un pic mai târziu în cadrul evenimentului. În ceea ce mă privește, așa cum mi-ai propus, îmi revine și de data aceasta rolul care e mai degrabă dificil sau poate chiar ingrat de a încerca să contribui la conturarea fundalului pe care se desfășoară discuțiile cu distinșii noștri invitați și evident că, nefiind nici expert în macroeconomie și cu atât mai puțin ghicitor, nu mi-e mie nici deloc ușor să sugerez ce ar putea să urmeze în contextul acesta de incertitudine maximă pe care l-ai descris și tu, în care nu trec luni fără evenimente care cel puțin ne surprind și ne provoacă, dacă nu chiar ne șochează. Cred că se tot înmulțesc lebedele negre, acum sunt cam peste tot și probabil că va trebui să inventăm o nouă metaforă pentru ceea ce nu știm că nu știm. În același timp și tot cumva menținând tradiția unor intervenții anterioare, aș vrea să mă refer din nou la faptul că în ultimii ani, să spunem ultimii 2 sau 3 ani de zile, se tot întâmplă lucruri care poate fiecare în parte și cu atât mai puțin cumulate ar fi putut să îngenuncheze economia, atât cea globală cât și cea locală. Am avut și avem război, criză energetică, inflație galopantă și niște dobânzi majorate în consecință, disrupții majore în lanțuri de aprovizionare, a fost COVID în China, fracturi geopolitice, decuplare comercială și tehnologică între blocuri și așa mai departe. Toate lucrurile acestea s-au cumulat în ultimii ani și totuși economia s-a dovedit de fiecare dată rezilientă. Dezastru nu s-a produs, cel puțin nu încă. Unele dintre probleme s-au mai aplanat, cel puțin inflația, care deși rămâne ridicată în România, în general, la nivel global, nu mai pune o problemă chiar atât de mare și se pare că asistăm în mod, aș spune, remarcabil la una dintre puținele aterizări line după un episod inflaționist major. Da, deci s-au găsit de fiecare dată soluții, unele mai bune, unele mai proaste, într-adevăr cu eforturi mari din partea guvernelor care au generat dezechilibre bugetare mari, deficite generatoare de îndatorare suplimentară, iar acum suntem în faza în care se încearcă cam peste tot și cu siguranță avem, poate mai mult decât oricine, provocarea de a ajusta aceste dezechilibre, iar această dificultatea ajustării fiscale se suprapune peste problemele care nu s-au depășit, costul mare al finanțării, al energiei, acestea fiind două ingrediente foarte importante ale competitivității, alături de costul capitalului uman, și la toate aceste capitole avem de suferit atât ca Europa cât și ca România. Și într-un moment în care se mențin sau poate chiar cresc tensiunile geopolitice și se prefigurează adevărate războaie comerciale. Bun, totuși în acest context ai spus și tu și o să reiau și eu câteva cifre, deși nu știu dacă în toate cazurile vorbim de exact aceleași, eu știu, predicții sau chiar evaluări. La nivel global am avut totuși o creștere de 2,7% și predicțiile sunt să se mențină sau chiar să crească în funcție de, mă rog, dacă ne uităm la cele ale Băncii Mondiale sau ale Fondului Monetar Internațional. Desigur că aceste dinamici pozitive sunt susținute de economiile mult mai turate ale Statelor Unite și ale Chinei, plus cele ale unor piețe emergente, pentru că în zona euro, așa cum spuneai, se așteaptă o creștere modestă de 1% pe fondul dificultăților persistente din Germania. Acum, dacă ne uităm la Europa Centrală, dinamica pare a fi mai bună, cum e și de așteptat pe fondul substanțialelor fonduri europene care se pun în tot mai mare măsură în mișcare, atât prin cadrul financiar multianual, cât și prin Next Gen EU, programul care, în cazul nostru, se cheamă Planul Național de Reziliență și Redresare. Chiar voi ați scris recent despre deblocarea unei treimi din aceste fonduri disponibile și asta înseamnă că la nivelul regiunii se prefigurează o creștere în linie cu cea globală și în mod oarecum neplăcut surprinzător, în România predicțiile sunt un pic mai rezervate, între 2,1 conform Băncii Mondiale, 2,5 conform Guvernului și Comisiei sau, 3,3 conform FMI, altfel într-o scădere dramatică față de ce se anticipa astă vară, dar totuși într-o creștere față de performanțele dezamăgitoare de anul acesta. Tu ai menționat, cred, 1%, am văzut și cifre de 1,4, 1,8, eu nu sunt chiar edificat în legătură cu care e cifra finală la care ne raportăm, cu siguranță una dezamăgitoare și deci vorbim pe toate predicțiile de o îmbunătățire a climatului economic, ceea ce recunosc că mi se pare în contrast cu sentimentul general de așteptare mai degrabă anxioasă sau chiar îngrijorată și cu niște surse obiective de îngrijorare pe care le-ai menționat și tu, care prelungesc dinamici actuale legate de scăderea investițiilor străine, de o inflație care totuși, cel puțin în cazul nostru, rămâne la un nivel mai ridicat decât ne-am dorit și decât este în alte locuri, prețuri ridicate la energie, costuri salariale problematic de mari raportat la productivitate și altele. Deci, într-adevăr, probabil că o să dezbatem astăzi de unde va veni această accelerare, pentru că situația e complicată în România și de șocul alegerilor din noiembrie și de anxietatea cu care am început să ne raportăm chiar la prefaceri pe care le consideram ireversibile în ultimii ani de zile, economia de piață, apartenența la structurile lumii libere și da, asta e, aș zice, ultima lebădă neagră care încă n-a produs efecte directe, dar care totuși e de natură să submineze încrederea, care este fundamentul creșterii și când asta se combină cu ajustarea fiscală care e inevitabilă și despre care încă nu știm cât se va realiza prin scăderea cheltuielilor statului, cât prin îmbunătățirea colectării și cât prin creșterea taxelor și impozitelor, ajungem într-un moment pe care tu l-ai descris foarte bine, Cristi, acum câteva zile, ca nefiind unul ușor pentru cei din business. Acum, cel mai simplu este să tot evocăm motivele de îngrijorare. Ar trebui să facem totuși efortul să trecem în revistă și rațiunile pentru care ar trebui să rămânem încrezători și cred că prima dintre ele ține de faptul că nu ne folosește la nimic să fim pesimiști. Poți face pariuri short dacă vrei la bursă, dar nu cred că îți poți shorta propria afacere. Cred că trebuie să-ți propui să crești, pentru că niște obiective asumate autentic au un magnetism așa care te trage spre ținta respectivă și asta văd la cei mai mulți dintre executivii cu care discut. Apoi cred că rămânem totuși în această tendință macro, care este în continuare foarte pozitivă, e de convergență cu Europa din care facem parte și, sper că vom continua să facem parte, sper că nu ne vom preda prea mulți dintre noi viziunilor contrare destinului european al țării noastre. Dinamica asta de convergență e susținută de tot felul de aturi despre care discutăm de fiecare dată, aturile noastre naturale, ca țară, ca geografie, ca piață. Și este susținută până în alta de capitalul străin și de foarte substanțialele fonduri europene pe care le accesăm în tot mai mare măsură. Piața, spuneam, e mare, dispune de o putere de cumpărare în creștere continuă, care în cazul Bucureștiului a ajuns deja la media Uniunii Europene. Mai nou suntem cu totul în Schengen, beneficiem de visa waiver pentru Statele Unite. Suntem în proces de aderare la OECD, avem aceste investiții masive în infrastructură în sfârșit. Am făcut niște pași care cred că sunt importanți spre digitalizarea fiscului și acum cu cuțitul la os și în ceasul al 12-a, probabil că suntem dispuși și sper să fim și capabili să reformăm statul, mai ales că subiectul ăsta e unul de actualitate la nivel internațional. Aș mai spune ceva ce mie mi se pare important. Băncile sunt puternice și doresc să crească finanțarea în toate segmentele, ceea ce poate că nu va fi simplu dacă ne uităm la ce spun directorii financiari despre apetitul lor la îndatorare, însă băncile cunosc foarte bine economia, încrederea lor este un barometru, zic eu, foarte bun despre potențialul de creștere care rămâne semnificativ și da, chiar dacă băncile manifestă prudență când e vorba de condițiile creditării, cum e și normal în condițiile date, eu cred că faptul că ele rămân open for business contribuie foarte, foarte semnificativ la stimularea încrederii noastre tuturor și sigur a economiei. aș spune cu permisiunea lui Zeno, care are meritul principal pentru orchestrarea studiului nostru și pe care care va prezenta acest studiu în continuare, aș spune totuși că dincolo de un ton general de optimism prudent, directorii financiari au o perspectivă mai degrabă preocupată, fiind mai pesimiști decât omologii lor din restul regiunii cu privire la evoluțiile financiare ale companiilor lor, deși tot ei sunt cei care, într-o majoritate destul de solidă, prevăd o creștere a veniturilor acestora. Sigur, preocupările rămân în cea mai mare măsură cele legate de costuri și de asumarea de riscuri suplimentare în bilanț, ceea ce nu e o veste chiar bună pentru economie în ansamblu. Trebuie totuși să ținem cont în același timp că este rolul natural și esențial al directorului financiar să se preocupe de aceste riscuri și să gestioneze costurile, așa că nu ar trebui să ne surprinde și poate să citim prea mult sau să ne îngrijorăm excesiv din această perspectivă. Aș încheia spunând că dacă menținem direcția corectă, care este fără îndoială cea bazată pe economia de piață și pe integrarea euroatlantică, eu sunt convins că vom progresa în continuare mai rapid în unii ani, mai lent în alții, nimeni nu știe dinainte, dar vom merge mai departe spre o Românie tot mai prosperă, tot mai ofertantă pentru toată lumea, chiar dacă nu în aceeași măsură pentru noi toți, cum nu se poate niciodată și nicăieri.
Alex, mulțumesc frumos. Înainte să mergem la dr. Alexander Berg, să vedem care este perspectiva la nivel european și special la nivelul Germaniei, vreau să întreb cum se anunță 2025 pentru Deloitte. Adică voi aveți, bineînțeles, un alt ciclu financiar, dar acum, la începutul acestui an, cam cum crezi că va fi anul? Sau care sunt provocările tale directe ale Deloitte și pe ce domenii vă veți axa?
Noi, într-adevăr, avem un an financiar din iunie în mai, așa că ne găsim un pic după jumătatea lui și avem o creștere bună, 9%, e un pic peste planurile pe care le-am făcut și ceva mai puțin decât ceea ce realizasem în anul financiar precedent. Vedem încă o cerere solidă pentru toate competențele noastre, suntem cu toții ocupați și credem că vom termina anul chiar mai bine, cu o creștere așa de 2 cifre. Ce se va întâmpla în anul următor, care pentru noi se termină în mai 2026, e evident mai greu de prognozat, deși vom intra în curând într-o perioadă de planificare. Probabil că ne vom propune o creștere single digit, un pic mai mică, inclusiv dintr-o anumită prudență care e justificată de context, dar eu rămân încrezător că și într-un climat de eventuală dificultate suplimentară va fi în continuare mare nevoie de competențele noastre într-un context care e foarte dinamic pentru clienții noștri, cu schimbări de legislație, cu presiune pe conformare, cu transformări digitale, de sustenabilitate, cu reorganizări de tot felul, în general din rațiuni de eficiență și de reducere a costurilor, cu investiții publice care se mențin la cote înalte și cu o utilizare pe care o anticipăm a fi în continuare bună a fondurilor europene, mai ales în domeniul energiei, în care noi suntem foarte mult implicați. Sigur, ne putem îngrijora un pic când vedem remarcile directorilor financiari despre rezervele privind asumarea de riscuri suplimentare în bilanț. Probabil că asta nu e de natură să dinamizeze piața de M&A, dar în același timp se întâmplă și aici multe lucruri, unele chiar în context de dificultate sau de schimbare radicală de politică sau de strategie pentru unii actori. Da, noi ca expresie autentică a încrederii pe care o avem în evoluțiile noastre viitoare, avem în derulare angajări de noi parteneri, chiar de întregi echipe. Vedem încă
deci ai cel puțin la începutul anului, chiar dacă voi sunteți la mijlocul anului vostru financiar, un sentiment pozitiv pentru începerea anului 2025. Voi de obicei sunteți poarta de intrare pentru foarte mulți clienți în ceea ce înseamnă investiții, knowledge, așa ca și ultimă întrebare, din perspectiva discuțiilor cu clienții, da? Cum începe anul? Sau cum a început anul și cum crezi că va fi?
Bun, toată lumea se arată îngrijorată și cred că asta e mai mult așa o stare de spirit care e greu de evitat în contextul ăsta global, de altfel foarte schimbător, foarte volatil. În plus, clar, executivii conștientizează că România se află într-un moment dificil în care decontăm niște politici din ultimii ani care au fost neinspirate și acum ne confruntăm și cu demonii unui trecut pe care îl consideram îngropat, aș zice, la groapa de gunoi a istoriei. Deci, sigur că îngrijorările astea sunt în orice conversație. Pe de altă parte, eu nu prea aud clienți care să nu vorbească de planuri de creștere, chiar de investiții, de inovare, de transformare. Deci dacă nu se întâmplă ceva rău așa la un nivel mult deasupra noastră, geostrategic, eu cred că va fi un an greu, dar nu va fi neapărat un an rău.
Alex, mulțumesc. Mergem acum să vedem ce se întâmplă la nivelul Europei, care sunt tensiunile geopolitice care marchează Europa și, bineînțeles, ne marchează și pe noi și care este impactul asupra economiei. Mergem la dr. Alexander Börsch, Chief Economist and Leader of the Research Division la Deloitte, Germania. Analysis of the economy, evolution of the global level and in Europe. How will the Romanian economy be effective? Alexander, thank you very much for your presence here again.
Oh, good morning. Nice to be here again. Great
Hello.
pleasure.
How is Germany doing? How are your mountains in back of you? Is a hologram?
Well, it's not an original photo, unfortunately. I'm not sitting in the mountains, but nearby in Munich.
Again, thank you very much. You have a power presentation. We'll see in a couple of seconds. What is your conclusion about this year?
Well, I mean, it will be a tough year for Europe in several respects. So we have a sort of competitiveness challenge, and we have a slowly growing economy plus some trade challenges. So that's will make it tough. However, you see on the other hand that some sectors and also some companies are doing quite well. So we will see quite a bit of divergence. But I mean, generally, I would like to talk about three issues. So first is the European economic outlook for 25. So what can we expect here? The second will be competitiveness challenges for Europe, and what will be the key economic policy priorities. Next week we will see the presentation of the new competitiveness strategy of the European Commission. And lastly, I will shortly talk about geo-economic trends. So how will the new trade environment affect European industries? So, but let me start with the current situation. And what you see here is the Purchasing Manager Index, our most important early indicator. And 50 is the magic number here. Everything above 50 indicates an expansion of the economy. Below 50 implies a contraction of the economy. And well, there are several messages here. I mean, first is the US economy is doing exceptionally well. I mean, there will be economic historians looking at the current period and wondering, well, how could it be so well performing? Because despite all headwinds, it keeps on growing. So we see what the financial markets call a no landing of the American economy. And for the European economy, you see 24 was quite a volatile year. So there was actually a good start. So increasing economic activity until the early summer, but from the early summer onwards, we went south, which has a lot to do with missing consumption and investments. But I will get to that later. So all in all, we have a growth rate of a bit less than 1% in the European Union in 24, and a very mild recession in Germany, minus 0.2%. However, this is the second year of recession in Germany, and if you look at the pre-COVID era, so we are seeing stagnation compared to 2019. If we look a bit deeper into that on the next slide, you see a great divergence of the economy. So this is the Purchasing Manager Index again, but you see here industry and services. And I mean, it's quite obvious that services are doing well, and I mean this applies especially to tourism in Europe. I mean, countries which have a strong tourism sector, such as Spain, Portugal, Greece, are performing very, very well. So they're the strongest growing countries in Europe. On the other hand, you see that the industrial sector is struggling. So the industrial sector has been in recession for quite a while now, which has to do with missing foreign demand, which has to do with high energy costs, which has to do with a lot of factors. But it's especially in Germany, we see that industrial investments are pretty low and on a lower level than before COVID, and that also industrial production has decreased. However, and this is the good news, there are some signs that the industrial recession is bottoming out. There are some indicators that suggest that at least after the first half of the year in 25, the industrial sector should recover. On the next slide, you see why 24 has been so difficult, especially in comparison to the United States. And you see here on the left-hand side, private consumption in Europe compared to the US, and on the right-hand side, corporate investments in Europe compared to the US. And you see that consumption was stagnating in 24, while private consumption in the US has been doing quite well. So the US consumer is much more optimistic than the European consumer, which obviously held back the European economy. Maybe even more remarkable is the difference in investments. So US corporates invested much more than European investments. So we see a strongly increasing trend in the US and stagnation again in Europe. And this is a lot to do actually with investments in artificial intelligence. I mean, we see the big digital firms in the US investing strongly in AI, and we see a general investment restraint in Europe and not so many investments in AI, at least compared to the US. And these two factors, I mean, plus trade, were sort of held back the European economy in 24. So what's behind this sort of restraint in consumption and investments is a factor that you see on the next slide, and that is uncertainty. I mean, uncertainty is a bit of a gut feeling, but there are some economists at Stanford University who developed an index, and this index is supposed to measure uncertainty in the economic environment. And actually, this index has two key messages. One is the peaks in uncertainty have been driven to a great degree by geopolitical events. I mean, it starts with 9/11. You see here the war in Ukraine caused a peak, and many other events. So, I mean, this tells you a little bit about the relation between geopolitical events and economics. But secondly, we see that starting with the Ukraine war, especially uncertainty in Germany has exploded and is much higher than in Europe overall, but it is also much higher than in the United States, and it keeps on growing. And I mean, this has a lot to do with, the new trade environment. It has to do with political uncertainty in Germany, especially. I mean, we will have general elections in around 4 weeks, which came at least a bit as a surprise on the day of the US election. And we have all these sort of competitiveness challenges, and this is holding back the German economy, but we see a similar pattern also in other European countries, especially in those countries which are based largely on the industrial sector. So much to the present and the past. Let's have a look now at the outlook for 25. what will support the European economy in 25 will be monetary policy. I mean, as you know, the interest rate cycle has started last summer. The European Central Bank and also some of the Eastern European central banks started to lower their interest rates. And for the Eurozone, we can quite safely assume that interest rates will continue to decrease in 25. This is our forecast for the development in 25. So we expect a steady decrease in interest rates. The line for the Fed is a bit more uncertain because, as you know, there is a discussion in the US what the economic policies of the new administration will mean for inflation and what will mean for monetary policy. So the least we can expect is a slower decrease in the United States in terms of interest rates, and financial markets also speculate that there could even be no decrease in 25, but even a stagnation or an increase. So, but for Europe and the Eurozone in particular, this should help the economy and companies. If we go one slide further, we see that the most uncertain part of growth in 25 will be trade. I mean, this won't surprise you. So the impulses from trade and the growth contribution from trade is very, very uncertain, very much depending on the development of trade wars and of tariffs. On the consumer side, actually, we see very solid fundamentals in Europe. So inflation has been decreasing, interest rates have been coming down. So this means real incomes have increased through Europe. However, consumers are still hesitant to spend the money they have. So in a way, this will be a competition between uncertainty and healthy fundamentals. However, we know that when interest rates decrease further, savings will be less attractive. So there should be, at least after the first quarter in Europe, there should be an impulse from private consumption. And we should also see a sort of a slow recovery of investments caused by decreasing interest rates in Europe. So there's a sort of cautious optimism that we can have for the European economy going forward. What does that mean in terms of numbers? That's something that you see on the next slide. And what you see here is the expected growth rates for 25 for a sample of some of the most important countries. And overall, I mean, the world economy grew at a rate slightly more than 3% in 24, and it's likely to grow again at 3.1% in 25. So not much change on the overall level. However, we see a bit of movement under the surface. We see that the Asian economies are doing very, very well. I mean, especially India has been a growth champion for the last years. And sort of to a certain degree, India replaced China as the growth engine of the world economy, growing at rates of around 7%. We see in Europe, we see a certain return to growth. So the Eurozone is forecasted to grow at a bit more than 1%, and Europe as a whole a bit more. The Eastern European countries, I mean here Poland and Romania, growing at rates of around 3%, also substantially more than in 24. And Germany here at the end of the list. So for Germany, we will see we're likely to see a higher growth in 25. However, we won't see very dynamic growth rates. So our forecast for Germany assumes a growth rate of 0.5%, which is, I mean, it's a glass half full, half empty question. It's better than last year, but it's certainly not a great performance. So much for the outlook for 25, and well, there's a word of caution in order. I mean, obviously we have all these uncertainties, so I mean every forecast in 25 needs to be watched very closely after the first quarter, once we know what will happen in the trade space. Let me now quickly turn to economic policy and for Europe, and there's one really critical question for European policymakers, and that is how can we reverse the trend that Europe is falling behind the US economy. And that has been a trend for quite a while. You see here the development of GDP figures. And I mean, it's quite obvious. I mean, in 2009, the European Union and US had roughly the same GDP. And over the last 15 years, the US economy grew to a level that is 50% higher than the European economy. And that has a lot of implications. I mean, we saw it in Germany last year. I mean, it was cheaper for American tourists to come to Taylor Swift concerts in Germany, even if you include the flight and the hotel and the tickets, than visiting a Taylor Swift concert in the US. So we see really implications in purchasing power from this development here. And you will find quite a similar picture quite early in the Draghi report that was published last autumn. And I mean, that's really the key question European policy makers need to deal with in the current year, but also in the medium term. And if we look a bit deeper into the Draghi report, which is on the next slide here, the Draghi report identifies three key areas that needs to be tackled. One is innovation and technology. So we certainly need a catch-up process in digital technology, especially. We need a catch-up process in artificial intelligence. And there are a lot of proposals on the table how to achieve that. I mean, pan-European financing is certainly important here. Deepening of the common market is important so that tech startups can scale their business model more easily, and a lot more. But I guess we really need to accelerate our innovation performance. Second area is energy and the circular economy. Here the focus will be on energy prices and sort of achieving lower energy prices and decarbonization at the same time. Not an easy task, but I mean it's quite interesting that especially the circular economy has sort of plays quite a big role in the Draghi report, so we can expect also new initiatives in policy making. And lastly, we have the issue of the defense industry and resilient trade. Given the new geopolitical situation, I mean, it's quite obvious that Europe needs a more effective defense industry, and it needs a more coordinated defense industry. That's one dimension here, and the other is resilient supply chains. So here the question: how can we make sure that we have access to the resources we need in this new geopolitical landscape? And as I said, the new competitiveness strategy of the EU will be presented next Wednesday. And it will certainly build on these points here. but that will certainly be a critical moment to move Europe's economy forward. So much on competitiveness. Let me now briefly look at trade in more detail and in the new trade landscape we're entering. And I think it's important to note that we are already living in an age of increasing protectionism. So this is nothing that will start with the new US administration. It has been a trend for the last at least 10 years. And you see here how protectionism developed. So in green, you see goods protectionism. So tariffs, for example, certainly the most prominent case here. But we also see that there are new forms of protectionism emerging. We see protectionism in services, especially in digital services. Think of the Chinese digital firewall. And we see also a higher degree of protectionism when it comes to investments. I mean, cross-border investments. We have a lot of investment screening in the world right now, especially in the tech and the high-tech sector. So that's one part of the picture, but it's also important to note that at the same time, we have new free trade initiatives, more on a regional level, but still noteworthy. As we see a lot of movement in Asia, we see the formation of RCEP, which is the biggest free trade area in the world, including China, South Korea, and Japan, for example. So new opportunities also for European countries, companies are emerging here. And we see closer to home the conclusion of the EU-Mercosur agreement that happened in last December. Still not final. I mean, as you know, we need the consent of the European Union members, but certainly a good step forward after 25 years of negotiation. So we have a global trend towards protectionism, and we also see a trend towards more free trade in the regions and on a bilateral level. So we can say a sort of more complicated trade picture that is emerging here. When we now look more specifically into the plans of the US government, and you see the main points of the Trump administration on the next slide, the main economic policy points. I think there are, three key areas Europe's policymakers and companies need to prepare for. First is there will be a strong decoupling from China, so that's something that is quite obvious. Looking at the party program, so the sort of de-risking, decoupling process from China will accelerate. Second, there's a very strong intention to attract more investment in the United States. So the competition between locations and the competition between the US and Europe and, of course, Asia for investments will increase. And lastly, of course, we have the issue of tariffs. I mean, nobody really knows how these tariffs will look like. I mean, we had some first indications yesterday, 25% on Canadian and Mexican imports. How tariffs on Europe will look like, that's really absolutely not clear, but I'm pretty sure we will see some movement in the next days and weeks. I mean, the original proposal was a 10% tariff on all US imports and 60% on Chinese imports. Whether that materializes, we will see, but of course that will disrupt trade and supply chains. How does it affect a European business? Some hints on the next slide. What you see here are the financial market reactions on the day after the election. And you see the dots stand for the share price development of companies from the sector. And I mean, it's quite obvious that financial markets were quite optimistic about the economic effects for US companies, and they still are if you look at the valuations. The picture for Europe is quite interesting. So overall, the Euro Stoxx index did not move that much on the day after the election because, I mean, the effects on European companies are quite diverse. So we see some companies in some industries are expected to benefit from the new administration. In the industrial sector, for example, that applies to companies from the defense sector. We see that some banks are expected to benefit, I mean, especially banks with a strong presence in the United States. And even for energy, the picture is quite mixed. So renewables lost quite substantially, while more conventional energy companies gained. So I guess the message here is the effects of tariffs and the effects of the new administration, they really differ from industry to industry and from company to company. And actually also the effects of tariffs vary a lot. It depends on who will bear the burden of tariffs. Will it be the exporters? Will it be the consumers? Will it be the retailers? That's not clear. And this again needs a sort of more industry level analysis. And what we shouldn't forget is that if we assume that there will be 10% tariff on all imports, on all US imports, and a 60% tariff on Chinese import, that means we have a delta of 50 percentage points for European companies, meaning that European companies will become cheaper compared to Chinese companies on the US market. And this will certainly generate some opportunities also for European companies. There is a downside, and this is an indirect effect that we shouldn't forget, and that is once the US market is close to Chinese companies, they will need new export markets, and it is very likely that they look towards Europe, but they will also look towards other export markets. So we should prepare for higher competition also with Chinese companies in Europe, but also in the third markets. If we could move one slide further, almost the last one. I mean, this slide is very much meant to illustrate the complexity of world trade these days, because I mean many people are still sort of thinking about trade in quite an old-fashioned way. And I mean the idea is we produce a car in Europe in one country, and then we export it to the US, and then there will be a tariff. I mean, reality, as you know, is much more complex. And this graph here shows you the supply chains of the cross-border supply chains of the biggest companies in the world. And it is quite obvious that we have the bulk and the majority of world trade is taking place in supply chains and taking place within the walls of companies. And the message here is that there will be quite unexpected effects once we enter a tariff war and once we have tariffs in the US, because it will affect intermediate products. It will also affect US companies that import intermediate products and then export them. So it will be a very interesting year with some really unexpected effects should this sort of new world of tariffs materialize that was announced. So on the last slide, you see some of the emerging topics for European companies coming from the new tariff landscape. And obviously this is the number one topic in companies these days. Trade and investment strategy is a big topic. Many companies are thinking about investing more in the US to sort of jump over the potential tariff wall. But also the increased competition with China is a major issue, especially if you have Chinese inputs in your products and then export to the United States. So a lot of new topics emerging here on top of the sort of more traditional economic topics. And from that perspective, it will be a very interesting year. And I think that European companies really need to think in scenarios how all these factors can play out in their industry and in their market.
Alexander, thank you very much for your presentation. Before to go to Zeno, to conclusion of Deloitte CFO Survey Romanian 2025, a few questions. Where is Romania in this picture? How you see Romanian? Because 75% of our export-import belongs to the Europe, especially Germany. If we saw your presentation that the Americans are the clear winner of this from the economic point of view in the last year, and our Europe is down. And how you see Romanian?
I think, Romania is certainly affected by this new trade landscape more in an indirect way because the direct exports of Romania to the US are not that big. However, the indirect effects are through the German and the European exports. So in this way, it will be probably a challenge for Romanian exports. The same is true for the quite weak German economy and especially the German industrial sector. However, I think there are also some positives. What we see is an increasing political bloc building in the world, and we see a certain amount of reshoring and friendshoring. And this suggests that Romania could benefit from increased investments that might come back from China, and it could benefit generally from this trend towards friendshoring.
Okay, German, it's dependent on the auto industry. In Romanian, the auto industry and automotive industry is number one. How you see this industry going?
Well, you're right. It's Germany's and probably also Europe's most important industry, with a lot of challenges coming from the geopolitical situation, coming from the green transformation, coming also from different consumer behavior compared to the past. There's also increased competition with China. So I guess the auto industry certainly needs to reinvent itself. Nevertheless, we always need to remember that Europe as a whole has huge competitive advantages in auto. It also has advantages in automotive technology. So, and from that perspective, I think we have a good basis to build on and also succeed in the current transformation. Although it will certainly not be an easy task.
Europe, as a region, is not a very entrepreneurial region and don't have enough entrepreneurial spirit like the American. How you see Europe evolving in the future?
Well, I guess you're right. The entrepreneurial spirit in the US is higher when you look at the usual indicators. Nevertheless, Europe still has quite significant strength in innovation. If you look at patents, if you look at science and technology hubs, if you look at technology development, Europe is quite strong. However, we have a certain weakness to commercialize the innovation we are seeing. So this has to do with capital. This has to do with even education. And my hope is that the new competitiveness strategy puts a focus on the commercialization of innovation, so that Europe can benefit from the innovation it generates. And I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, if you look at the development of European startups and the development of European venture capital, we see a very strong upward trend. So again, we see quite healthy fundamentals, but we need a more political support for the technology sector and for innovation more generally. And we need, let me add that, we need less bureaucracy. That's also a huge drag for startups and for innovation.
Alexander, thank you very much for your presentation. Let's hope that in 2025 the European will doing much better than in the last years. Acum mergem către Zeno pentru concluziile Deloitte Cfo Survey România 2025. Zeno,
mulțumesc tare mult, Cristi. Sper că ne auzim. Da. Bună dimineața tuturor care ne urmăresc online. I will switch to English now, and I will start by thanking our distinguished speakers for accepting our invitation to this important summit, so expected by the CFO community in Romania. My Deloitte colleagues, Alexander Berș and Alexandru Ref, for sharing their perspectives for 2025, and to the numerous CFOs in Romania who participated in this edition of the survey. I do believe that a decision to take a few minutes to share their views and expectations with us is what makes this study one of the most relevant for the business environment in our country. Without further ado, I would like to present you the insights we extracted from the study. And if you can go to the first slide. Our survey, 2025 edition, was conducted among 126 CFOs in Romania in the period September-October 2024. So it factors in the challenges and the opportunities of which the CFOs and the business environment at that time were aware. If you move to the next slide. This year edition of our study includes a special chapter about the role of the CFO and the risks they must manage. Our study indicates that the role of the CFO has been expanding significantly, both in Romania and across Central Europe, as businesses adapt to evolving challenges and opportunities in a rather, I would say, complex and uncertain economic and geopolitical environment. And this is part of a worldwide trend, not only in Europe or Romania. This expansion requires CFO to lead organization by accelerating value creation, driving operational excellence, and shaping talent experience and culture. Our ongoing research into the future of the CFO role indicates that financial directors are increasingly expected to be visionary business leaders who can navigate accelerated change, minimize business risks, and maximize value creation as their organizations are growing. According to our survey, the role of the CFOs in Romania, like their peers in Central Europe, has evolved from a traditional financial oversight of their companies to a broader strategic leadership role. More than 50% of our respondents indicating that they are increasingly responsible for areas like digital transformation, risk management, building ESG strategy and reporting on ESG matters, and company-wide governance processes, while their influence in the board has grown significantly over the past 5 years. This evolution reflects the need for CFOs to adapt to technological advancements, demographic shifts, and environmental considerations and regulations, increasing regulation actually, all of which reshaping business operation and value creation. If you move to the next slide. Risk management has always been a significant responsibility for the CFOs. And according to our study, CFOs in Romania identified a wide range of risks which might impact their businesses, from inflation to geopolitical instability to cybersecurity threats. inflation surges, seen as both highly probable and severe, based on our study, top the list of concerns, while the ongoing war in Ukraine continues to pose a significant risk on the businesses in Romania and in Central Europe. Next slide, please. Also, CFOs in Romania show a strong interest in understanding the broader geopolitical landscape, but are generally less proactive in preparing strategies and plans to mitigate risks rising from this area. Almost 9 in 10, 88% of the CFOs who responded to our survey actively monitor political and economic news, and 72% expressed curiosity about structural, societal, and economic changes. This high level of interest and awareness indicates a foundation for a more informed decision-making. However, only a quarter of our respondents engage in activities that could help them understand the impact of geopolitics on their company's business and strategies, which show a kind of gap compared with the CE regional peers. If you move to the next slide, and now we discuss the macroeconomics and economic outlook. CFO in Romania expect an increase in the annual inflation rate, not a surprise, for 2025, compared to 2024 levels, both locally and in the Eurozone. The average expectation of our respondents points to an inflation rate of 5.4% over the next 12 months, which is above the projection issued by the National Bank of Romania for 2025. For the euro area, Romania CFOs estimate an inflation rate of 3.1% for 2025, while the CE consensus is at 2.9%. Anyway, both expectations are above the ECB projection for 2025. Next slide, please. As Alex already touched, Romanian CFOs are overall less optimistic about the financial prospects for their companies in the next year, which is understandable in the context, geopolitical context, both the global level and local level, reflecting higher risk and a more challenging economic and geopolitical context. Just 21% of the Romanian CFOs are now more optimistic about the financial prospects of their companies compared to 26% in 2003. And by 50% less than in 2021, when we were in a COVID situation. In Central Europe, 34% of the respondents are more optimistic, down from 36% in the previous year. As you can see in this slide, if you look to the wider pictures, Europe pictures, because our survey was done also in Central Europe, but also in EMEA, we noticed that the Romanian finance leaders are among the most pessimistic in Europe regarding their company's financial prospects, which is a kind of worrying. Romania ranking the third most pessimistic country among the other European countries in our survey, after Austria and Germany. Let's move to the next slide, please. The dominant opinion among Romanian CFOs is that now is not the right time for businesses to take on higher risk. We saw this pattern in the last 3-4 years. It's not something new. The thing is that the share of risk-averse respondents increased to 87% from 84% last year. This widespread risk aversion reflects the ongoing uncertainties in the regional and global economic landscapes, signaling the need for cautious and well-informed decision-making among businesses as they navigate through, I would say, rather challenging 2025. Moving on to the next slide. When it comes to uncertainty, similar to last year, half of the respondents rate the external financial and economic uncertainty facing their business as high. In Central Europe, though, the share of respondents who perceive high level of uncertainty has declined to 43% from 51% in 2023 and 61% in 2022. Again, more positive view in Central Europe compared to Romania. This trend suggests that uncertainty remains a significant factor influencing business decisions across the region. The war in Ukraine and geopolitical tensions, economic instability in the key markets, and inflationary pressures are still among the top drivers of this uncertainty. In particular, Romanian CFOs still view, let's skip to the previous slide, please. Still view increasing regulation as the primary threat to their businesses. Although this concern is not as pronounced as it was in the previous year. Additionally, they are apprehensive about a potential decline in demand. And this is particularly relevant as Romania's growth model, driven by consumption mainly, might be challenged in 2025 due to the authorities' need to implement measures aimed at reducing the budget deficit and the current account deficit. The percentage of the CFOs identifying the shortage of skilled professionals as a risk decreased from 46% last year to 39% now, suggesting that the labor market conditions have improved, have become more balanced, which is a good sign. However, geopolitical risks continue to be at the top of the list with 35%, while economic outlook gathered 29% of the responses. We can go now to the next slide. Although Romanian CFOs predict steady increase in revenues, 58%, they are displaying overall a lower optimism level compared to previous years regarding the evolution of their company's key metrics. As such, the share of the CFOs expecting revenue growth has steadily declined over the past few years. Expectations for operating margins are also very, very prudent, I would say. Only 26% of the local financial leaders foresee an improvement in margins in 2025 compared to 35% in the last year. An important note is that the CFOs in Romania are significantly more cautious about capital expenditure, investment, and employment growth compared to the previous year and to the regional consensus. Only 34% of respondents anticipate an increase in investments, down from 46% in the previous edition, while 33% expect CapEx to decrease, a sharp rise from 90% in the previous year. Again, consistent with the overall pessimism regarding the economic outlook and geopolitical situation. Similarly, only 26% of CFOs predict a drop from 37% last year. Let's move to the next slide, please. Priorities. Priorities for 2025. Cost reduction, again, not a surprise, emerges as a key priority for 2025 by 37% of respondents, while organic growth is seen as a priority by 24% of the local respondents. When discussing available sources of capital, Romanian CFOs identified internal financing and equity finance as the most attractive funding options, while corporate debt and bank borrowing remain less appealing. Although perceptions of financing sources are largely consistent with the previous year, notable shifts have occurred in views on internal financing, which dropped from 55% last year to 44% this year. Moving on to the next slide. In this edition of our survey, Romanian CFOs were asked about their expectations regarding the tax changes, considering the local economic environment and the expected measures for decreasing the budget deficit, which is quite high at the end of 2024. And most of the respondents, again, not a surprise, foresee tax increases as the Romanian authorities have committed to implementing a 7-year fiscal consolidation plan aimed at bringing down the budget deficit. In this context, almost 3/4, 74% of the respondents expect the local taxes to increase in 2025, with 27% forecasting these taxes could increase by over 5 percentage points. This category includes mainly property taxes, but also it's important to note that most of the CFOs, 70%, expect the VAT rate in Romania to increase in 2025, despite the government assurance that this will not increase in 2025. Last slide of my presentation, but not the least, our study dedicated the entire chapter to Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, which requires listed companies with more than 500 employees to prepare sustainability reports from the year ending 31st December 2024, while in the second wave of compliance, the reporting requirements will be extended to non-listed companies meeting certain criteria in terms of revenue, assets, and employees. These reports are quite complex and must address topics related to environment, social aspects, and governance. And preparing them requires a remarkable effort of documentation and effective measures for compliance following a relatively short calendar. In this context, more than half of the Romanian companies participating to the survey have already prepared or are going to prepare reports, CSRD reports in line with the CSRD requirements. Almost half of the Romanian CFOs see CSRD reporting primarily as an additional cost. A third consider it as a risk management tool, and only 23% view CSRD as a source of value creation, indicating that many CFOs may not yet see opportunities for competitive advantage or innovation tied to this required sustainability reporting. What type of expertise do they utilize to prepare this reporting? 54% of respondents form a cross-functional team in their companies, while 15% have hired a dedicated team. Additionally, the percentage of Romanian companies that rely on external consultants for CSRD compliance reporting is more than double compared to companies which are trying to manage it in-house, 62% versus 29%. This highlights the need for specialized guidance and support in meeting the complex requirements, as well as opportunities for training and capability development in this area of sustainability reporting. Now, to conclude my presentation, our survey indicates that Romanian CFOs are bracing for a rather challenging year ahead, marked by cautious optimism and the focus on mitigating increasing risks, while emphasis on cost management and risk aversion will likely shape their corporate strategies in 2025, given the persistent increasing uncertainty, not only on our local market, but also regionally and globally, as Alexander indicated previously. This is the end of the presentation of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussion with our distinguished guests. Thank you.
Deno, thank you very much for your presentation. So 70% of the CFO in Romania expect that VAT to increase, yes?
Yes.
And 59% income tax increase and 47% corporate tax rate increase. So it's a tough year. Before we go to our panel to discuss with the four CFOs, from your interaction with your clients, what are the company's general concern for 2025?
As indicated in our study, there are two or three components. One is economic.
The challenge in economics.
Taxes.
Okay.
It relates to economic outlook, which is determined also by overall economic outlook in Europe and in global. Second is political one, and the third is increased regulation.
Okay, you are responsible for this CFO survey from years by years. This is the most challenges year?
Look, if I'm going back to 2020 when you had the survey, we thought that 2020 is the most challenging year because of COVID, then 2021 and 2022. Yeah, given the current situation, and I will refer now to the entire geopolitical situation, it looks to be a very challenging year because of a lot of uncertainties. Difficult to predict, difficult to build a budget for the next 5 years. And I do believe, as Alexander mentioned, after the first quarter, we may have more visibility about it. But yes, it's a challenging year, but it's plenty of opportunities, including for Romania.
Okay. If you refer to the opportunity, what do you think will be the opportunity?
As our CFOs indicated, further revenue growth. Let's not forget, although there is a pessimism, 27, I think, % of the CFOs still look at their companies in a positive manner, believing that the revenues will grow, the profitability will grow. So there is still optimism. I think Alexander touched all this area, including the potential growth for Romania, which Poland and Romania is topping the ranking of the countries with the potential highest growth in 2025. And if Romania economy is growing, then the companies are growing.
Okay, then thank you very much. Now we'll go to the panel. What are CFO expectations for the 2025 financial year? What is the role of the CFO in sustainability and in non-financial reporting? We'll discuss this topic with Elke Maier, CFO BCR, Card Quant, CFO Orange Romania, Bogdan Văduva, CFO Group EMAG, and Ștefan Francula, Group CFO Electrica. Now we'll go to Elke. Elke, thank you very much for your presence here. How is BCR doing? How you start this year?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to join this distinguished panel. BCR has a very strong balance sheet and also a quite strong P&L coming from last year. So we are looking into the future moderately positive, taking on the opportunities which were mentioned a little bit earlier by the guests, which of course one of them is still the inflow of money from the European funds, which will boost, and I think this is also one of the drivers for growth, for GDP growth, still in Romania. And the second topic, which was mentioned before, is also the nearshoring possibilities due to the disruptions which can happen to supply chains, and also the threat, especially at the moment, coming from the US putting on quite high tariffs. Yeah, so I think this is one of the two main topics where we see possibilities that the Romanian economy will grow, and therefore banks will have opportunities to either co-finance or bridge finance projects as well.
Many people expect that the interest rate to be down because the inflation is down, but the interest rate is up. From my point of view, the main threat is finance minister, because attract all the money from the market with put higher interest rates. Do you think your clients, I mean companies and physical person, can manage this interest rates?
I mean, we still believe that during 2025, interest rates will go down. They will maybe not go down as quickly as some might want them to go down, due to the fact that inflation in Romania will, rather in comparison to other European countries, stay still a little bit on a higher level. And that's why interest rates also stay on a higher level. But what we have seen so far in 2024, 2023, when interest rates went up, both our retail clients as well as our corporate clients were able to manage these higher interest rates. It's true, the demand for financing was not as high as it was then in the previous years. But with interest rates going down, we think demand will pick up, both on the retail side as well as on the corporate side.
From your department, you are CFO of BCR. For your department, what will be your main priority this year and your main challenges in this environment?
Yes, I mean, this is because it was mentioned a little bit, what are the priorities for the CFOs. I would put it in because there I saw a cost reduction was the main priority and growth the second. For us, it's rather the opposite way. It's growth. We want to grow organically as BCR. And the second thing is we don't call it cost reduction, because BCR is among the big banks the one with the lowest cost income ratio. So it's not so necessary to further reduce costs, but we want to stay efficient. This is for sure. And the second thing is, we will have to look what kind of tax ideas will come from the government, and how we are going to implement those. So these I think are our kind of three priorities. A little bit also the topic which was mentioned is CSRD, which we are kind of preparing ourselves to publish the first report, because we are one of the listed companies and we need to prepare. And the CSRD reporting is within the finance line, although, as was said before, it's lots of other divisions in BCR need to contribute to that report.
You mentioned taxes. Are you afraid about the company taxes that may come after the second half of the year, or the new taxes on the banking?
Yeah, I mean, this is our biggest concern. I mean, if corporate income tax goes up 1-2 percentage points, it's not such an issue. But the banking tax, which is based on turnover, has a bigger impact on us. And yeah, that it's not worrying. It will not make BCR unprofitable. But of course, it will decrease in the end the net profit. But it's a tax which we think there is a possibility that it will increase.
In the case of BCR, do you have new investment plan for this year? And how you will finance that from the capital, from the loan, and so on?
Yes. We do investments, especially in the technology area. We do not do investments in, let's say, physical footprints. We do investments there as well to make our branches look nicer and more modern. And but the main focus is on technology, also to start using AI in a more active and proactive manner, and constantly develop our digital journeys, which we are quite developed for the retail clients, but we need to do that also for the corporate clients and for our internal processes. And this we finance by our own funds.
Every area we see a strength of regulation, especially in the banking system. Banking is not anymore entrepreneurial banking. It's more regulated sector. Yes. How you can manage in this with the new regulation in this life?
Yeah, it's a topic which you address, which indeed gives us a lot of tasks and things to think about. And unfortunately, it's not adding a lot of value, let's say, for PCR per se. It probably adds value to the banking system being a stable one. It's difficult to manage all the regulations which come from different regulators, from different authorities, from tax authorities as well. And the most difficult thing is that lots of times we don't have the so-called technical norms to implement them quick and fast. And we have to wait till we can develop something in order for it to be mainly automated, because this reporting needs to be automated, because, as you said, we have really an avalanche of what we need to report. And it's also sometimes difficult to find people who are still willing to deal with all these regulations which come. But up to now, we have usually managed, and we will do so in the past. You have to be very, very agile and flexible in order to implement all these regulations and norms.
In BCR, who or what department is responsible for a non-financial report? I mean, to cover the three major...
It's partially, so we have a finance line, which is with me, and we have a risk line, which is with a different VP, and we work together on this reporting. But the CSRD report, for instance, is within the accounting division in BCR.
Okay, but what about, ACG, Environment, Social Governance? It is split between department or...
Yes, we have an ESG office in BCR, which is dealing mainly also with our clients, because we need to get our clients also onboarded, that they take those topics into consideration and work with it. So these are more or less dealing with, let's say, our clients, also what we do in the area of educating our clients. But the reporting responsibilities are within the finance line and within the risk line.
Okay. Every company discuss about sustainability. Okay, the company to be sustainable, to be part of the society, the development of society. What is your main topics related to this strategy, this policy?
As I mentioned before, I mean, because we have to also report a lot on the topics which concern our clients. So the ESG office is having so-called ESG dialogues with our mainly corporate clients to make them aware what is possible and what is necessary to also get what we call sustainable finance, because we have a 25% ratio, which we would like our financing to be sustainable for our clients, both on the retail as well as on the corporate side. And then we have our, let's say, own activities, which we concentrate on. We want to have at a certain stage only electric vehicles in the company. We only want to consume green energy and things like this. Yeah, so we have things which we can directly influence as a bank in our operational world, and we have things which we try to indirectly influence by making our customers aware about all the ESG topics which there are.
For you, what is the main question that you have in mind and you don't have an answer for this year?
How the geopolitics will develop, I have to say. And of course, also they connected with this, how the economy will develop. Yeah, I mean, we have as BCR a moderate positive outlook, as I said before, but there is a lot, as mentioned before, of uncertainty around it locally. For Romania, because you have your the elections are still ahead, the presidential ones, but as well on geopolitics, what will be really the next steps of the Trump administration. I mean, we have seen already a couple of things. Europe so far, he didn't even mention in his speech, no tariffs so far, but will that stay? Big question mark.
Romania is far away for United States. From your point of view, for your discussion, let's say, with the main shareholder, Este, and all your colleagues, do you think Romanian will be impacted by the decision of Trump? Not directly, but indirectly.
I think indirectly Europe will be affected, and with this Europe as well, Romania as well. I think we will see impacts. This is my personal opinion.
So, you mentioned at the beginning that you are moderate optimistic this year. Okay, Romanian have. What is the strength of Romanians right now?
Romania, what I have seen in the years in which I've been in Romania, are very flexible, and they are very prone or prepared to adapt to different situations. Because since the pandemic, we did not have any single easy year, I would say. We had 2 years of pandemic, then we had the start of the war in Ukraine, then we had therefore the energy prices, the inflation, higher interest rates, which for banks is usually good. But for the rest of the economy, not so great. So I think, and Romania adapted always very well, yeah. Also due to the fact, and that's maybe a little bit of a difference because I'm Austrian to Austrian and Germany, we immediately start saving. When things get very bad, Austrians and Germans start saving immediately. Romanians don't do that. They stay on consumption still. And what we saw also in the US, and the US is also more consuming, and consumption is the fuel for economic growth.
Okay, thank you very much for your discussion. Do you have a question? Let's be 1 second a journalist like me to put a question to Carl. It's the new in Romanian. Is the new CFO of Orange. They have another channel in Telecom. Put him a question.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, a question to, yeah, how is he? How, I mean, because it's a different industry, telecom, and how they see the economy evolving and what impact it will have on their business.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Thank you very much for your presence here. You are new
Thank
CFO.
you.
So,
good morning, Christian. So,
welcome to CFO Survey Deloitte.
thank you very much. It's a pleasure. So it's quite funny because yes, probably the economic context is not that positive for Europe. However, the telecom industry is a bit, let's say, on the side, because what is the telecom industry is facing right now is more of its own challenges, mainly a very complex landscape due to very high competition on the prices, while maintaining important investments, because we need to maintain and to keep a very high quality and a very high service for our clients. And so it's squeezing actually our margin, but it's not necessarily the direct impact of the economic context. It's more of, as I said, a competitive landscape. And so we need to find a way to maintain our efficiency and counter all this. Specifically, and this is much more disproportionate in Orange Romania, because in Romania, we can see, and I think everybody in the panel can see it. We have probably one of the best networks in Europe in terms of latency and in terms of efficiency, while at the same time, we have definitely the lowest prices in network over Europe. And so it makes it even more challenging in Romania than in other European countries. And obviously, the price inflation, we are not benefiting from it on the revenue part. However, we have it on the purchasing part.
For you, the last 2-3 years was to manage the integration of Rom Telecom in Orange Romania. What is the situation? This year will be like one company?
So in reality, the merge, so we did do the acquisition 2 years ago, but the legal merge happened in 2024. It was our biggest achievement. So we can consider that the merge started last year, and it's still ongoing. We are on progress. It's quite tough. We hope that 2025, by the end of the year, we will have finished the key milestones. But where we are right now today, we are still finishing the migration and the merge of all IT systems and all processes. Why is it quite challenging? Because the teams are trying to maintain the same level of service for the clients, and we are trying to do it as transparent as possible, so invisible for the client. And I really thank all the teams at Orange, because their day-to-day is not so easy, and they are trying as much as they can to do it correctly and on a timely manner in order to achieve our targets end of this year. So we hope we will finish this end of 2025.
Every merger, every integration is very tough. In this context, what is your plan for investment? You postpone your investment, you accelerate your investment this year?
So we actually don't stop our investments in Romania. We are quite well implanted. As I said, the telecom industry is required to invest continuously because all the time we have new innovations. Right now it's 5G and fiber deployment, and we are quite advanced. Romania, in terms of country, is quite advanced on those two topics. And we have to do it to stay competitive and, as I said, to keep the quality at maximum. So investment will not stop or reduce because we are in a merger position. It's more of a topic of, is it an efficient investment or not? Just so you know, Orange Romania, since its creation, already invested in Romania almost 4.5 billion euros. And we hope to maintain a steady flow of investment. We do almost a little bit more than 200 million per euros in investment. And as we said, right now we are looking, the way we invest is a little bit different because we take into account ESG KPIs to decide if we do invest or not on specific projects. And this is not the only way we contribute in value creation, let's say in Romania via assets creation, but you also contribute in our due diligence in terms of tax contribution. And also there, since our creation, we already contributed for 4.5 billion euro of tax. And so we believe, the way we see it, is that we brought almost 9 billion euro of value into Romania. And it will not stop tomorrow because we consider ourselves as a local operator, even though we are part of a big group.
For you as a CFO, what is the main challenge this year?
So I think it's a bit specific, as you said, because we have a context that is a bit different. The main challenges at Orange in 25 will be obviously the merger, but it's also cost efficiency. I will not use the word cost reduction, it's more cost efficiency. Since we are squeezed on the revenue part and on the purchasing, we find ways to optimize our expense by leveraging on innovation, on AI. How can we deliver more with less by using those tools? And the third one for me in terms of challenges is ESG. It's the CSRD report. We will do the first CSRD report for year 24. It's quite a challenge. It's not that easy, and we keep learning every day. And I think 25 will be an important year for this.
So, in the case of Orange, you are responsible for ACG reports, yes?
No, we have a dedicated team for ESG, but this team works with all departments, mainly communication and finance. And so as a finance department, we need to deliver many KPIs. We also ensure the compliance of the figures and the compliance to CSRD framework.
Why are the people so afraid about this report? Because, you know, it's a report, it's a romantic report. Who can challenge your report? The authorities, your shareholders, your headquarters for Paris?
No, it can be changed by almost everyone because it's a public report, and I think it's more of a it's more of a transparency thing. Are we honest with what we say? Are we legitimate in what we say and what we deliver? Because ESG is a core value at Orange, and so we take objectives and targets related to ESG that we communicate in the beginning of our strat plan, so a 5-year forecast. And if you do not deliver, and since it's transparent and it is audited, you may not achieve your target, and therefore you lose credibility on the market. And as I said, we really focus on ESG, and CSRD is more of a report to challenge ourselves, make sure that we do deliver our ESG targets or not. Why is it so complex? Because it's a report of almost, so if you read the CSRD framework, it's almost 1,000 KPIs. Not all of them are so easy to get because the data doesn't exist. So we need to create it.
1,000 indicators, KPI, 1,000?
The overall, but it depends per country. You don't have to report all 1,000, but overall it's 1,000 KPIs that you need to analyze and know which one concerns your company. And then you need to collect the data, and collection of the data is not that easy. And we saw it in 24 because when we did the exercise, it was quite complex. Sometimes the data doesn't exist. Sometimes it requires a complete IT overhaul. You need to change a lot of, you need to enhance your IT in order to get the data. And we know that in 2024, we had to do many topics manually. And in 2025, we hope to automate it through either AI or RPA or whatever tool or way we can automate.
How you see the Romanian from macroeconomic point of view?
Look, it's a tough question, and yes, we can do many predictions, and I think that the survey of Deloitte is the best response. From my point of view, Romania is not in such a bad situation. We can see that there is still a good GDP growth. Okay, there is a turmoil, political turmoil, there is the war in Ukraine, but I only see positive signs in the future. It can only improve, and I think this is the way we will go. So I'm more of an optimistic person than a pessimistic one.
If you look at the Romanian market in terms of the clients, how you see the market? It's full?
Yeah, so
from where you can take, let's say, another clients, where the growth will come? From where?
So we have mainly we have three business units. We have B2C, B2B, and wholesale. I will comment on B2B and B2C. So yes, on B2C, it's a bit it's quite challenging because demographic is not in that positive, and so we cannot gain more volume from demographics. I mean, it's a slight increase, but it's not an important one. And so on B2C, the idea is really to try and find value added or added value services, for example, content or other payment services or auxiliary sales. We are especially betting on the B2B because I think that on B2B there are many services that could have a very important increase, for example, cybersecurity. And so this is where we are playing and we are betting. We think that over there could be good positive signs.
Are you responsible, let's say, as a CFO for the sustainability report, the strategy, implementation, and so on?
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
No, as a CFO, are you responsible for the sustainability policy, the implementation, and to manage this report?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we contribute in generating the report, but as I said, I think that the report is a way to control our ESG targets. And if I go to the ESG targets, this is where we have a much bigger role as a CFO. We need to be sure that, I mean, when we look at a new project is, I mean, we have two main KPIs. Is it delivering good profitability, and does it have a positive impact on ESG? And many times when you look at a project, it doesn't bring an upside for both KPIs. Sometimes it's profitable but negative for ESG. Sometimes it's the other way around. It is very rare to have projects that deliver positive signs for both. And then it becomes, I will be part of the decision as a CFO to decide, okay, do we still go into the project that is not profitable but has a good impact on ESG or not? And this is quite tough as a decision because it's not necessarily my only decision, it's a management board's decision. And we need to know how do we play between what is profitable and what is not to achieve both targets at the same time.
You are here from a couple of months.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah. What is the strength of the Romanian?
As collaborators, look, when I arrived, so for sure there was a culture shock, like in any move when you go abroad. But I am quite positive on it because I realized that a Romanian collaborator is very autonomous and is upskilling nonstop. So they are really up to date in terms of automation and AI, always willing to learn more. They also manage end-to-end processes. So when I was in France, it was very segmented. Each person does one part of the process. In Romania, they are capable of dealing with the whole process from A to Z because they are capable of understanding what is the end objective and how can I deliver it from A to Z. So I was quite positive and impressed, and I really appreciate working with Romanian collaborators because it's quite fun. They are very joyful, and at the same time, they really deliver and they execute extremely well.
Okay, and the last question, to put a question to Bogdan. Bogdan is CFO of EMAG.
Yes, I am very interested regarding EMAG to know so when we look at the context in Europe, I think that EMAG is much more impacted of the consumer behavior and the purchasing ability. So how will you operate? Plus, I heard that Amazon could come to Romania. So is it true or not? And how do you see this in the foreseen future?
Carl, thank you very much for your presence. Thank you for your question to Bogdan. Bogdan, the floor is yours.
Hi, morning everyone. A pleasure being part of this CFO Summit. And let's go directly to Carl's question, a very interesting one. So yes, indeed, for us, disposable income and consumption, it's quite important considering that we are a retail business and consumer sentiment plays a key role in our business, in the development and in its growth. So last year we had a very good year. So disposable income was there, consumer sentiment was there. But of course, we are reasonably cautious when it comes to 2025, looking to all the changes, geopolitical perspective, looking as well to the new taxes in place and maybe potential other taxes coming second half of this year. But the way we are planning for this year, I would say it's still reasonably positive when it comes to increasing consumption. And also our budgets still are planned to deliver growth. So two main reasons behind. When it comes to private sectors, most of the companies we see, they are still going to increase salaries at least to catch up with inflation. And when it comes to public sector, even if there is a freeze right now and maybe restructuring are planned, last year, significant increases happened in public sector in Romania. So all in all, we are prudent, cautious, but still reasonably positive when it comes to consumption and the consumer sentiment this year. Going back to your second question.
Amazon.
So, Amazon, quite curious to if you can elaborate more on this. So definitely we are watching our competition. We know that this is Romania, it's an attractive market. Still there is the online penetration in Romania is low comparing to other countries. So if Amazon consider our market being an interesting one, so this will just, let's say, increase the market penetration. However, before Amazon coming, we see a lot of other players who started to tap into our market 1 year ago, be it the Chinese, Temu and Shein, and very recent Trendyol from Turkey, who are very active, and we see them as quite serious competitors. But if another competitors will decide to come into our market, this is a signal that this market is a good market, and more the merrier. So let's we are ready to answer to this question, to this challenge if it is to come.
Okay, for this year, you as a CFO of the group EMAG, what is your challenges, your topics, your priorities for this year?
When it comes to challenges, I think it's again the consumer sentiment. I think Carl was very spot on with his question. So this keeps us a bit awake at night. We need to properly calibrate our budgets in order to make sure we are to deliver growth, but still not to be over optimistic. This is one. Second, change in the tax regime. So already the changes which happened end of last year do affect us both in terms of our employees, considering that we have more than 1,000 software engineers. So now not having this removal of all the incentives for the IT developers is affecting us definitely in our cost base. And also in general, most of our consumers are coming from this area. So tax regime as well, it's important for us. And last but not least, inflation and interest rates.
Okay, your main investment this year and how you'll finance this investment?
So looking to the investments, we are not in a position where we are so cautious to put on hold or to reduce our investment plans. On the contrary, we are still going ahead with the investments planned in our 3 years plan. And right now we are in process to finalize the budget for our next year, which starts 1st of April. So 3 directions, I would say. First direction, it's AI. So for us, particularly in our business, AI can be a game changer, and we need to keep up with the investment in this area in order to make sure we are at least at par with our competitors. So this is one direction. Second, investments when it comes to developing our logistic networks, both mainly on the courier side for same day. So be it logistics hub and continue investing in our network of lockers in easy boxes. So this is an important investment area for us. And last but not least, we are still looking to grow not only organically, but also through M&A. So we have as well a bucket for potential M&As.
M&A in local market or in the region? EMAG is present in Hungary and Bulgaria. Do you think you'll go to other markets? If I remember correctly, it was Greece in your plan.
So as we speak, we are to focus on our core markets, being Romania, Bulgaria, and Hungary. But we are open to various opportunities. And last year, we also did 2 investments, 2 add-ons to our same-day business in Hungary. So we are also looking to add-ons as well, not only necessarily new markets, new countries, or new businesses. So I would say the first priority is add-ons in all the three countries. As we speak, we do not have any concrete plan to go to another geography.
Okay. In the case of ACG, EMAG, it's a big company. Okay.
Yes.
I think it's more than 5 billion euro revenue. Okay. In the case of ACG report, you are responsible for this report or other department? You are special people designated to cover this area?
So the overall responsibility stays with CFO, so stays with me. But definitely, as all the other explained a bit earlier, this is more a coordination role, because in order to deliver the ESG report, we need to have interaction with many verticals in the business. So I say more coordination stays, and the ESG office is part of under CFO responsibility. But all the other verticals of the business need to be important contributors in order to have this done.
And in the case of sustainability, when a company becomes a big company, all the stakeholders look at this company. Okay, the banks, the shareholders, the society. What is the case for you?
I think for us, our shareholder is listed on Amsterdam Stock Exchange. So next year we need to move fully to CSRD. Indeed, ESG, it's important, but we are not looking at it from a reporting perspective. I think EMAG has always been interested, and ESG was at the core of its business. So if it is to give you just some examples, so we even own forests. All our warehouses, large warehouses, do have BREEAM certifications. Looking to our lockers, which are developed by Same Day, all these do have as much as possible are self-sustaining when it comes to energy. We have photovoltaic panels for our warehouses, so we are very much into ESG at the core of our operations. And then reporting is just somehow a result, translation of all this into requirements of the regulatory regime.
Okay, if you look at the Romanian as a macroeconomic point of view, what do you think? What is the main indicator you put in your, let's say, budget for 2025?
So for us, the most important key driver is the consumption.
Consumption.
So,
okay. So
yes.
the salary growth.
So basically, we try to look on the consumption being generated first by salary growth, and second, trying to embed the consumer sentiment. And I think what is better for us in Romania, like Elke mentioned a bit earlier, Romanians are not necessarily first in, let's say, the turbulent time to saving, so they do not immediately drop, let's say, the consumption. But we really need to better understand this, and this is something that really is top on our agenda.
So consumption, salary growth. The second?
Definitely GDP growth.
GDP growth.
Overall, and for us, inflation and interest rates.
Okay. Do you finance, do you have enough money in your budget, I mean in your company, to finance the investment, or you are a client of the bank to take credit?
So we try to have a solid balance sheet and a proper capital structure. So we have leverage, but we have reasonably leverage, and we are very much looking to create more shareholder value by leverage, but we want to keep this under reasonable control, not to be over indebted. So as we speak, we have both own resources, plus we are to leverage some of our investments of this year.
What is your question that you have in mind and you don't have an answer for this year?
So, okay, definitely geopolitics, economy, so on and so forth, everyone has this. But what it also keeps me awake at night, because geopolitics we cannot control, so we need to adapt. It's like COVID, it's like war in Ukraine, we need to adapt. Productivity in Romania, this is something that really we try to figure it out, because Romania is not as competitive as used to be. And long term, I think lots of things needs to be done in this direction, because we are not as competitive as we were as a country, and still to fuel the growth, we need to make sure, and we do not figure it out, how come the economy will be more productive, and all companies need to do something in this respect. And this is first question for us. So we try to increase productivity, and we hope that Romania in itself will be more competitive for looking to reach its GDP growth potential.
Okay, and your question for Ștefan. Ștefan is CFO of Group Electrica. To pass to him.
My question to Ștefan, because I used to work a bit on the energy in the past, and I know it's not an easy sector. And my question to him, what is a scenario for the energy market, and how are they able to manage somehow, particularly their supply business, where they are still in a position where it's not easy to finance in the current regulatory regime.
Bogdan, thank you very much. Stefan, it's your turn.
Thank you, Cristi. Thank you, Bogdan, for the question, and thank you for the invitation to this esteemed panel. I am quite honored to be here, and I'll try to answer first to Bogdan, who knows indeed the business from his previous consultancy experience. So I think that the last couple of years, starting end of 2021 and after, have forced us to improve on our resilience, to improve on our flexibility, and to really make some changes due to the urgency that we realized it compared with the past. Now, if we are speaking about the energy business in Romania in general, it's true, it's a business where the margins are quite thin, and you need to be very attentive in keeping your margins. Probably you are speaking of margins below 5%, net profit to the turnover, to the revenues. And with the existing situation where we needed to pre-finance the support scheme, us and the other big suppliers, which with the accumulated amounts, significant cumulative amounts. I mean, in our case, we took some 600 million euros loans, which are not related to my working capital needs per se, not related to my capex needs, but just to pre-finance the support scheme that the government put in place for the end consumers. Yeah, of course, this impacts in terms of interest expenses, and it shows. So we need to be very attentive in costs. I think that the path is only via digitization, which is a way to achieve two things. First of all, customer satisfaction. And the second, optimizing the cost, improving the cost base. Yeah, right now we have, like it happened also in the banks, we have requests which are coming through our portal to My Electrica, and they are going electronically. At a certain point, they are printed out and go physically in the company. This should be automated completely, ideally, and you should have all the processes somehow integrated with the system. We made some steps in terms of implementing the latest version of the ERP from SAP, implementing also SAP ISU as a solution for the industry, which is utilized in a lot of energy companies. We are benefiting of increased speed of processing, but still there is a lot to be done. So in a nutshell, this would be to answer to Bogdan.
Stefan, the price of the energy, all the companies ask for this question, ask us, and we ask you, what is your prediction, your estimate for the evolution of the price of the energy?
Listen, from this point of view, I can only do a speculation. It will be a personal opinion. I cannot express the opinion of Electrica. I would see that the price of energy during this year will go slightly down, but it not drop significantly. I think we are in a context in which, fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, we are benefiting already of a situation in which we see Western Europe countries in recession, most notably Germany, and this should reflect in lesser consumption there, and a better inflow of energy from them to us, of course limited by the interconnection capacity. Also, I think that we should take into consideration the fact that luckily we have winter, which is not very tough on us. Most presumably it will be also an easy winter until the end. So I think that in terms of prices of energy, I would see a slight decrease, but not something like a significant drop. But it remains to be seen. From our point of view, we are trying to mitigate the risk for that, trying to secure energy and purchase energy from the markets on forward contracts to have a certain percentage covered for our portfolio, in order not to depend as much on the day-ahead market and the equilibrium market, balancing market.
For you, this year as a CFO of Electrica, what will be your priorities?
For me, the priorities will be twofold. Threefold. Okay, let's add to three things. One would be to continue to finance the capex plans. From our point of view, we'll continue to have significant plans of investment in Romania. Cumulated after listing, this group has invested more than 6 billion RON in Romania, in the investment projects in Romania, mostly in the distribution network, but also in green energy production. So although our projects are not so spectacular per project in terms of amounts, I think we are one of the important investors in Romania, comparing also with the amounts that I heard before from my colleagues in panel. For distribution, the distribution will need to continue to invest until 2030 significant amounts, similar with the ones that we invested in the previous years, because the distribution companies need to transform, to digitize, to become a different type of animal in order to accommodate the transformation of the energy sector in Europe, which is considered through programs like Fit for 55 and REPowerEU and so on, in order to accommodate sub-distributed systems, prosumers, solar production connected directly in the distribution network, electric cars, and so on. From this point of view, the financing for the distribution, we have a very good collaboration with the EIB. You saw the news that we signed another 200 million euros loan in December with EIB. Cumulated, their conditions are quite competitive, and cumulated we are at more than 400 million euros exposure signed, not drawn, by EIB on Electrica, making us the largest customer of EIB in Romania, corporate customer. The other part would be financing the green energy development, the generation, the parks that we have in under construction, and with the clear plans to be commissioned. And for this, as also our general manager mentioned, and you also noticed from our GSM approvals, we will consider the issue of a Eurobond. If the market conditions will prevail, we could consider tapping the market for a Eurobond, green Eurobond this year for financing this. So this would be the first priority. The second priority would be automate the reporting, continue a process that we started already, through which at this moment we are having solutions of automating the consolidation of data from our subsidiaries, with the aim to have automation of preparing the adjustments for the IFRS reporting, for the controlling reporting that we are using in our management teams, because I do think that we cannot wait anymore until balance is closed, the trial balance is closed on the 25th of the next month. We need to have financial information as much as possible in real time, in order for us, the management team, to take informed decision. And the third will be related to ESG. Also, my colleagues touched base on this subject. We will also be subject of as listed company of reporting, the sustainability declaration as part of the package of reporting and audited by our financial auditor. I think here it's also, I'm anticipating your question. In the headquarters, it's also under my responsibility as CFO, the part related to ESG and sustainability reporting. In the operational companies, it depends in terms of how they decided to organize themselves, but there are people dedicated. There is a consolidated team across the company who are starting to gather the data, to work together as a team. And I think what is important is that beyond the reporting process, we will need to also take care that we have what to report. So it's a matter about getting people to think always with the hat in all the decisions of the company, with the hat about sustainability, about this criteria, And from this point of view, we are also having an internal master program organized in collaboration with the Academy of Economic Studies, involving these people, which are a part of the overall ESG team in the group, making them to think together, to have ideas together, to work together. So this would be,
So the ACG report, it's a nightmare.
It is complex compared with last year. Now, this year, when it becomes from a sustainability report, the declaration of sustainability, I think Carlo also mentioned about the more than 1,000 points of data to be collected. It is quite complex because in some cases you need to make up estimations. So you don't necessarily have the data. You are not really used to collect that data. I mean, it's a process of learning for ourselves and also for our financial auditor and for the consultants that we are collaborating. It is quite complex and some aspects are not clarified. Probably some simplification or some clarification will come in the future, but we are keen on, having this done as good as possible to perform this part of the first report in a very professional and focused way. We are one of the companies which established at the level of the board of administration a specific committee. There are not that many companies, so we have a committee which is aiming for public policies and governance of the climate change, which is also focused on that. It fits also with our strategy related to developing green energy, financing with green bonds. So it is complicated, but we will make it. I think that on a long run, we should run to the point where this is automated in the ERP, so that we are running a situation in which when you book a transaction, you should be able in the system to have the estimation of CO2, to have the clarification on the scopes, so that everything can be consolidated as much as possible automatically for this kind of reporting.
Stefan, from your point of view, how you see the business of Electrica this year, the business environment in Romania, and how you see the macroeconomic indicators evolving?
Okay, let's start with the macroeconomic indicators. You have been together with me in Euromoney, now it's called
Vienna. Okay, last week.
Overall, the investors and the financial groups, banks' perception to Romania is not that bad. They are not that that scared about the macroeconomic position. I think if the government will manage to make some changes with the fiscal consolidation package and improve a little bit on the deficit in order to show that there is a change of evolution, things will get fine also in terms of financing and in terms of perception of the investor for this year. Also, I think that demand for the financing, also sovereign level, or also for a potential bond from Electrica are quite high. It would be also important to see where the economic growth will stabilize, because as Dan was mentioning, this is also an indicator important for us in terms of consumption, because it's related also with the consumption of energy distributed and so on, which is affecting our key metrics in terms of budget and performance. From this point of view, I was checking and I saw that World Bank is quite optimistic, advised a little bit on the up the estimations for Romania. There is this potential that with maybe after mid-year, getting away from the election period, and with accessing the EU funds and having some fiscal consolidation done, growth should be there, at some 1.52%, and this should be beneficial for the evolution. Now, for the business. For our business, as I mentioned, we showed our resilience in the last years. This year should be an important year in the idea that we expect the support scheme to be discontinued at a certain point, even if it will be maybe continued for a period, until after the elections. But the scheme is is here for quite a long time. It's presenting a risk also for the government in terms of EU regulations, and it's also putting a lot of pressure on the budget. So if the scheme will be gradually removed, then the amounts that we're using to finance the part that we need to recuperate under subsidies will be gradually switched to production, the development of production, to business development in the production area gradually. If the macroeconomics will be well, and also the elections and all the evolution of the market, capital markets, we are considering to issue the bond in the two windows possible, May, June, or September, October. And then once we start to put more production capacities in place, this is mitigating overall the risk at the level of the group, and is helping us to have some synergies also with the supply subsidiary and change a little bit the perspective for the group.
Stefan, before we have the conclusion with Alex and Zeno, what is your question that you don't have an answer?
Well, that's a tough one. I have many questions on which I don't have an answer. The one which is bringing me to my mind is who will be the president of Romania. Now, I don't know. You saw that also in the past time, businesses are resilient. We are still looking at the projects. I think, irrespective of how the political setup will be in the end settled. From the business point of view, we'll continue to do the same things, investing in the activities, developing the activities. From our point of view as Electrica, we are a natural champion. Our activity is only in Romania. We will never divest Romania. We'll continue to invest in these countries significant amounts for developing the networks, for developing the production, for contributing to the PNIESC targets of Romania. And, by mitigating our risk, I think we are also mitigating the risk at the level of the energy sector. So from this point of view, I don't think too much will change for us in respect of this question, but happy to discuss separately.
Okay, Stefan, thank you very much for your discussion. I would like to thank you all the panelists, and for the conclusion goes to Alex and Zeno. Alex, Zeno, care ar fi concluziile voastre CFO Summit 2025 Deloitte?
În primul rând că am avut un nou eveniment pe care personal îl consider reușit, o discuție foarte interesantă. Din nou vreau să mulțumesc și vouă celor de la ziarul financiar și mai ales membrilor panelului foarte, foarte interesant pe care tocmai l-am urmărit. Și cred că, într-adevăr, acest studiu rămâne o ancoră foarte valoroasă pentru a purta astfel de discuții. Și
mai ales la început de an, când toată lumea are întrebări, mai multe întrebări decât răspunsuri privind evoluția unui an. Și să vii cu niște idei despre an, îți dai seama, poți să treci în rapoartele tale, te ajută la construcția bugetului, te ajută la modul cum vezi desfășurarea business-ului.
Din păcate, ca și alte produse editoriale, inclusiv unele pe care le generăm împreună, există tot timpul o diferență între momentul la care interogăm interlocutorii și cel la care putem să agregăm și să decelăm concluziile și să prezentăm rezultatele studiului. Noi am luat acest input preponderent în vară sau am început să-l culegem în vară, într-un moment în care n-am văzut creșterea, sau în fine, interlocutorii care au dat aceste perspective nu anticipau poate că vom vorbi de o creștere totuși atât de modestă în 2024, că ne vom confrunta cu un rezultat atât de preocupant al alegerilor din noiembrie sau că vom fi în prezența unui dezechilibru bugetar atât de dramatic cum s-a recunoscut în final, pentru că ne aducem aminte, pe parcurs se comunica un pic în alt registru despre această vulnerabilitate, care evident atrage după aceea toate ajustările de care ne era teamă și acum probabil că suntem și mai preocupați. Alexander a menționat că dinamicile vor fi inevitabil diferite în diferite sectoare și între diferite companii și asta e o realitate din totdeauna care se va menține. Degeaba vorbim despre PIB sau creșterea lui care e o cifră, în spatele ei sunt de fiecare dată mii de povești diferite și cred că și în contextul de dificultate suplimentară pe care l-au, cred, sugerat toate intervențiile, companiile mari vor avea performanțe mai bune pentru că au o reziliență superioară. Ele vin cu rezerve, vin cu bilanțuri foarte puternice, vin cu resurse foarte, foarte semnificative, atât, manageriale cât și financiare, au de multe ori acces la finanțare de grup, dacă vorbim de multinaționale, sau în fine au relații privilegiate cu finanțatorii bancari, poate acces la piața de capital. Sigur că au și provocări pe măsură, dar eu cred că le vor înfrunta în cele mai multe cazuri cu succes și păstrând această concentrare pe creștere, pe ideea că va fi greu, dar nu e niciun sfârșit, e doar o etapă prin care trecem într-un proces de convergență care oferă în continuare oportunități semnificative. Pentru segmentul companiilor mai mici, probabil că dificultățile ar putea să fie mai mari, probabil că ele sunt mai expuse la o eventuală deteriorare a climatului de business și din păcate n-am avut perspectiva lor nici în studiu, nu cu precădere și nici astăzi. Dar predicția mea este că, deși va fi poate greu, va fi bine.
Ok. Clienții. Și revin la întrebare, clienții. Și mai aici mă refer puțin la investiții noi, pentru că în ultimii ani, datorită, nu știu, tensiunilor politice, datorită tensiunilor geopolitice, datorită, în special în cazul României, incertitudinilor fiscale din România, intră sau nu taxe. Chiar mă uitam și în studiul prezentat de Zeno, 70% din CFO, din directorii financiari, se așteaptă ca VIT, adică TVA-ul să crească și celelalte taxe, ceea ce induce o frică, o teamă în planurile de noi investiții. Mă uitam în raportul Zeno și una din provocări este de a face noi investiții, adică CAPEX-ul este foarte redus. Vezi o îmbunătățire din această perspectivă? Vezi că voi sunteți o firmă globală și am discutat despre nearshoring, friendshoring, delocalizări din China sau în alte zone către Europa, către regiunea noastră specific către România. Ai câteva idei? Voi sunteți, aveți niște, nu voi, clienții voștri au niște planuri de investiții pentru România? Sau încă vom avea 2025 un an stagnant din acest punct de vedere?
Anii din urmă n-au adus exact reașezarea scontată a lanțurilor de valoare, probabil pentru că totuși orice schimbare e de fapt foarte, foarte complicată și probabil că este un proces pe un termen mai lung decât ni l-am imaginat la un moment dat. Ca tendință, cred că România continuă să fie ofertantă din punctul acesta de vedere și pe măsură ce se vor accentua niște tensiuni comerciale și pe măsură ce se vor fragmenta schimburile în blocuri, eu știu, mai prietenoase sau mai apropiate, știu, ideologic sau din alt punct de vedere, eu sper ca noi să căpătăm o importanță sporită, dar lanțurile de valoare se resetează foarte, foarte greu. A arătat Alexander un grafic despre cât de mare e complexitatea și întrepătrunderea lor geografică și de asta nu putem să ne așteptăm ca în anul 2025 să se întâmple ceva spectaculos, să se accelereze foarte mult dinamica asta. Proximitatea războiului din Ucraina nu ne ajută, orice am spune. Vorbim într-adevăr și despre șansele legate de sau oportunitățile legate de reconstrucție, dar incertitudinea persistând cu privire la finalizarea conflictului, nu cred că am văzut, sau în fine, nu cred că putem vorbi nici în perioada următoare de o efervescență investițională legată de reconstrucție, deși au început să se facă diverse planuri și sunt companii care se poziționează în această perspectivă. Cei care au investit în ultima vreme au fost preponderent cei care deja sunt aici. Ați văzut și o parte, cel puțin, din mega tranzacțiile, nu de anul trecut, ci de un an înainte, s-au făcut totuși în direcția, în registrul de consolidare. La fel, marile tranzacții din banking au fost tot cu jucători existenți în piață și în general, evident, sunt făcute de către multinaționale. Ne uităm cu foarte mare admirație și cu speranța că vom vedea tot mai multe astfel de mișcări făcute și de către jucători locali. Deci, da, ne uităm cu mare admirație la consolidarea unora dintre actorii locali, dintre companiile antreprenoriale și ieșirea lor la achiziții sau la, cucerirea unor piețe regionale, dar în continuare România este foarte dependentă de capitalul multinaționalelor, uneori mult hulite și da, cei care sunt executivi în astfel de structuri au avut în ultima vreme o misiune mai dificilă în a promova cauza României ca o destinație mai ofertantă decât altele, pentru că de multe ori e vorba de emoții, de percepții. Noi n-am știut să ne profilăm de-a lungul timpului prea bine din perspectiva diplomației economice. Nu s-a întâmplat nimic pozitiv în ultima vreme la acest capitol, rămâne un subiect neglijat aproape cu totul de autorități, iar o serie întreagă dintre politicile publice produc impresii mai negative decât ar fi nevoie. De multe ori costul de imagine al unei proaste politici, de exemplu fiscale, sau a unei reglementări care nu e percepută ca fiind echitabilă sau ca susținând un mediu concurențial sănătos, e mai mare decât beneficiul, financiar care rezultă din colectarea unor venituri la buget. Deci, în continuare, eu cred că noi avem o problemă de percepție la care ar trebui să lucrăm cu toții și cred că, da, executivii din multinaționale se străduiesc să atragă investiții mai mari pentru filialele din România, în condițiile în care performanța lor obiectivă chiar e uneori mai bună sau mult mai bună decât altor filiale din grup.
Alex, mulțumesc frumos pentru ultimul cuvânt, ca să spunem așa. Zeno?
Cristi, aș dori și eu la final să mulțumesc din suflet tuturor celor care au făcut ca acest proiect să fie un succes astăzi. Ca de altfel și în ultimii 6 ani, de când organizăm CFO Summit. Și aș dori să închei un pic pe o notă optimistă. Într-adevăr, trece prin vremuri grele. 2025 este un an plin de provocări. Dar istoria arată că tot timpul vremurile ostile creează lideri puternici, creează companii puternice. Eu cred cu tărie că, așa cum am spus și în studiu, directorii financiari, pe lângă rolul lor tradițional, trebuie să fie niște lideri vizionari. Cred cu tărie că în aceste circunstanțe pline de provocări și incertitudini vor fi oportunități, iar directorii financiari și companiile pe care le reprezintă vor putea să le capitalizeze. Sper ca studii precum cel pe care l-am prezentat astăzi și discuții precum conferința noastră de astăzi le vor fi de ajutor liderilor financiari și companiilor în acest demers care nu e deloc ușor.
Zeno, Alex, mulțumesc frumos pentru colaborare, pentru acest Deloitte Cfo Summit 2025. Cam atât a fost. Astea au fost predicțiile directorului financiar pentru acest an, provocările, ce se așteaptă ei. Este un an provocator, ca să zic așa, este un an cu foarte multe evenimente care nu știm cum se vor derula, dar cred că România, cred că firmele, cred că persoane fizice, cu noi toți suntem mult mai rezilienți față de acum 15 ani. Dacă ne uităm puțin la pozițiile financiare ale companiilor, sunt mult mai solide, deci ar putea să facă față provocărilor, dar ținta noastră este de a recupera mai repede, să spunem, să ne îndreptăm spre Polonia, nu? Care într-un fel sau altul este o ținta noastră, și după aia către Uniunea Europeană. Eu vă mulțumesc și în câteva minute este ZF Live, tot cu mine vom discuta despre prețurile apartamentelor din centrul Bucureștiului și vom discuta despre agricultură, cum arată agricultura noastră la începutul anului.